ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय करुणापूर्णसुदाब्धे कबलितघनविश्वरूपकिरणावल्या अरुणाचलपरमात्मन् अरुणो भवचित्तकञ्जसुविकासाय वन्दे श्रीरमणऋषे आचार्यस्य पदाब्जम् यो मे दर्शयधीशम् भान्तं ध्वान्तमतीत्यः अखण्डसच्चिदानन्दे परब्रह्मण्यलौकिके विलसन्तं गुरुं नौमिं सर्वदा हृद्यहं भजे. Day by Day with Bhagavan, episode number 22, 17/9/1946. This night, about 9:15 p.m., TSR's child Ramana was bitten by something near the well in their compound. After a few minutes, the child was suffering very much, vomiting and perspiring profusely. They consulted Dr. Shivarao living next door, and he gave something which he said was a general antidote for all poisons. In a few minutes, he felt the child's pulse and advised them it would be better to take the child to Bhagavan. They accordingly brought the child, and when they entered the ashramam compound, the child was in a state almost of collapse, the body having become chill and the breath almost ceasing. They entered the hall and told Bhagavan, and he touched the child, passing his hand all over the child's body as if soothing the child, and said, "It is nothing. He will be all right." It was only after that the parents had some hope that the child would survive. When they came out of the hall, they came across our Ramaswamy Pillai, and he showed them another visitor who had come to the ashramam only this afternoon, who was an expert in saving people from snake bites, etc., and pronounced some mantras on the child and declared the poison had been got rid of by his mantras. The child recovered gradually, and the parents have told me that it was saved only through Bhagavan's grace. Another thing which may also be mentioned here is that the child himself, as soon as he felt pain, cried out, "Let us go to Bhagavan. The pain will go if we go there." Though on some occasions he would even refuse to be taken to Bhagavan when the parents proposed to take him there. This evening at about 6 p.m., Mr. Colombo Ramachandra's letter to Bhagavan with 7 copies of his Ashtakam was received, and Bhagavan gave one to me and one to Somasundaram Pillai as desired by R in his letter. Bhagavan found the order of the stanzas was not as printed under Bhagavan's directions here. Bhagavan said he had stuck to his order. Thereupon I said, these leaflets must have been printed before or received our leaflet and a letter accompanying it. 18/9/46. This morning, when I left my room about 9:30 a.m. for the hall, it struck me I might read out the Ashtakam of Colombo Ramachandra, of which Bhagavan gave me a copy last evening. As I went and prostrated myself before Bhagavan, he was telling TSR with the Ashtakam in his hand, should we not have it read it out here as it arrived only last evening? And TSR said, "Here Mr. Mudalayar has also come. We will ask him to read it out." Accordingly, I read out the same, telling Bhagavan. Somehow, I too thought of reading this today here and have brought the leaflet with me. Here it is. I had read out the Ashtakam before Bhagavan even as it was being composed in parts, and once after all the 8 were finished during Ramachandra's illness here, and again I had read it out on Jubilee Day. But it is strange that I should have thought of doing the same today also, and that Bhagavan too should have thought of it at the same time. 29/1946. This afternoon, from a book that Anandammal brought, Bhagavan was able to find out the story of how Gorakhnath killed his master Maschendra's child, etc., which Bhagavan was trying to trace on the 5th instant after having seen the film Bhartruhari the previous night. In this story, it is said that Chandunath wanted to write to Gorakhnath, but not being sure how to address him in a patronizing manner as a superior or as a junior writing to a senior, finally sent a blank piece of paper. In this connection, Bhagavan said, "This reminds me of an incident in my boyhood. I was quite young and did not know much about letter writing, and I wrote to my aunt's son, father's sister's son, Aneka Ashirvadam, that is, many blessings, in the manner of an elder giving his blessings. When he came, he ridiculed me for having sent blessings to him, who was about 10 years older than myself. But I did not know then who should bless whom. I only knew that whenever my father wrote to him, he used to write, 'My blessings to Ramu.' And so I thought that was the way a letter ought to be written. That to some blessings had to be given, and to others salutations, I did not know then." Mr. Daniel Thomas, minister, visited Bhagavan today about 4 p.m. He stayed in Bhagavan's presence for about 15 minutes and then left. He was presiding over a function in the town in connection with the Golden Jubilee of this municipality. I was in Tinnavelli for 1.5 years in 1910 to 1912 when this gentleman also joined the bar. He put no questions to Bhagavan. The press representative, Mr. Tilak, was here and apparently took a snap of the minister. 21/9/46. This morning, as directed by Bhagavan, a letter received by me from K. Ramachandra of Colombo and another received by Uma were read out in the hall. The letters described how the Jubilee was celebrated in Mr. Ramachandra's house with about 250 devotees of different castes, each one of whom placed flowers at Bhagavan's feet and worshipped him, and how all left with the feeling that Bhagavan was present in their midst that day. The letter to Uma quoted 2 stanzas from Subramanya Bhujangam as very aptly describing Bhagavan, and also said that Ars Ashtakam was really composed by Bhagavan, who inspired the lines. Otherwise, Or cannot explain why, when the children sing the Ashtakam at prayer time, he goes into ecstasy and forgets himself. In the afternoon, Nagamma read out her revised account of the Jubilee celebrations. It is very well written and full of bhakti rasa. It will soon appear in print. When Or's letter was read out and the 2 stanzas therein from Subramanya Bhujangam were quoted, Bhagavan said that it was Mr. K.V.R. Iyer, deceased brother of our Ramanatha Iyer, who first published from here the above work, though subsequently other editions and some translations in Tamil also have come out. One Mr. V. P. Sarathi from Masulipattnam had sent a volume of typed poems in English entitled Nivedana to Bhagavan. It seems he offered them at Bhagavan's feet in celebration in his house on Bhagavan's Jubilee on 1/9/46. They were received at the ashramam recently, and TPR read the poems out in the hall. The poems were good and well worth hearing. 22/9/46. Today, about 4 p.m., the minister, Mrs. Rukmini Lakshmipati, and Mr. Sivashanmugam, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, visited the ashramam. They were escorted by local Congress leader Mr. Annamalai Pillai and the Deputy Collector Mr. Vaidyanatha Iyer. They sat in the hall for some time and then left. 1/10/46. Dilip Kumar Roy of Aurobindo's ashram came here last night, and this morning he sang a few songs before Bhagavan. Later, when Bhagavan was perusing the New Times of today, he read out to us that at Mount Abu, two serpents fought each other, that one vanquished the other, which became unconscious, and at that stage, a boy who came across the scene did some first aid to the defeated serpent and put a cold bandage over it, that the injured serpent slowly revived, that seeing all this, the victor serpent was enraged and bit the boy, that the vanquished snake, which had by now recovered and revived under the boy's treatment, ran to the boy, sucked out the other serpent's poison, and saved the boy. When Bhagavan read all this out to us, I said, "It looks incredible." Mrs. T, to whom TPR recounted the story, also remarked, "Is this a story or what?" Then Dilip asked Bhagavan whether all this was possible. Bhagavan said, "Why not? Quite possible." Roy even asked, "How could the vanquished snake know and do all this?" Bhagavan said, "Why, it was watching what the boy did to it, what the other snake did to the boy, and so it ran and sucked out the poison. Snakes see and observe and can do such things. Many stories like this have been told of serpents." 2/10/46. This morning again Dilip sang a few songs before Bhagavan. 4/10/46. In the afternoon, Nagamma asked that a copy of her letter to her brother, describing the first visit to Bhagavan of Princess Prabhavati with her husband after their marriage, might be shown to Madhavi Amma, K.K. Nambiyar's sister, now here. Thereupon, Bhagavan asked, "What is that letter? Have I heard it?" Nagamma said, "No." I said, "Then why not read it now? We are all here." I meant Professors G.V. Subramanya, D.S. Sharma, K. Swaminathan, and we can all hear it. Thereupon she read out the letter. Later, Bhagavan asked GVS if he had seen Nagamma's song and Chinta Dikshitalu's Nivedana, which were printed about Jubilee time. He said no, and thereupon Bhagavan asked TSR to show him the above two pamphlets. He also asked TSR to show GVS the Telugu rendering of Bhagavan's 4 songs in connection with his mother's serious fever, made by Mr. Narasingarao of Nellore. GVS saw the same and said they have not so far been translated into Telugu. In explaining the first of these Tamil songs, Bhagavan told us that in the Tamil Alaiyai Varuppiravi Attanayum Matru Malaiyai etc. we can have either Matra or Atra as we like when splitting the Sandhi. If we take it as Matra, it would mean to change the countless waves of births and deaths. Arunachala rises as a mountain in the middle of the waves. If we take it as Atra, it would mean to cure or heal the disease of countless births. The Arunachala hill has risen as a medicine. In the evening after Parayana, Dilip again sang a few songs from Ganapati Shastri's 40 verses on Bhagavan. About 7, he stopped singing. Mrs. T told Bhagavan, he has composed 3 songs on Bhagavan's smile. They are very good, and requested D to sing them. But he excused himself, saying they are in Bengali. A few minutes later, I went and told him, we generally have Tamil Parayana between 7 and 7:30. Today we have cancelled that item and made that interval available for your songs. So, unless you find it inconvenient for you to sing any more, please sing 1 or 2 songs more. D said, is that so? And then he gave us 2 more songs, one on Devi and one on Shiva. He told Bhagavan he was leaving the next morning and that he had great peace during his stay here. This evening, D.S. Sharma asked Bhagavan, in Western mysticism, 3 different stages are often spoken of, namely purgation, illumination, and union. Was there any such stage as purgation, corresponding to what we call sadhana, in Bhagavan's life? Bhagavan replied, I have never done any sadhana. I did not even know what sadhana was. Only long afterwards I came to know what sadhana was and how many different kinds of it there were. It is only if there was any object or anything different from me that I could think of it. Only if there was a goal to attain, I should have made sadhana to attain that goal. There was nothing which I wanted to obtain. I am now sitting with my eyes open. I was then sitting with my eyes closed. That was all the difference. I was not doing any sadhana even then. As I sat with my eyes closed, people said I was in samadhi. As I was not talking, they said I was in mauna. The fact is, I did nothing. Some higher power took hold of me and I was entirely in its hand. Bhagavan further added, the books no doubt speak of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, Samadhi and Sakshatkara. We are always Sakshat, and what is there for one to attain karam of that? We call this world Sakshat or Pratyaksha. What is changing, what appears and disappears, what is not Sakshat, we regard as Sakshat. We are always, and nothing can be more directly present Pratyaksha than we. And about that we say we have to attain Sakshatkaram after all these sadhanas. Nothing can be more strange than this. The self is not attained by doing anything. but remaining still and being as we are. 5/10/1946. This morning, a person came and prostrated himself before Bhagavan at the dining hall. He almost touched him, and as I was wondering who it could be, the person announced himself to Bhagavan as Vasu, and Bhagavan said, "Is it you? If you had not said it, I should never have recognized you. You have gone down so much." The visitor replied, "I find I must say the same about Bhagavan." To this, Bhagavan said, "Why, what is the matter with me? Probably because you are reduced, your eyesight has also become reduced, and I appear reduced to you." Later in the hall, Bhagavan introduced this gentleman to all present and said, "This is the Vasu who caught hold of me when returning from an oil bath one hot day to Skandashramam, and I had that experience of what seemed like utter collapse with even the heartbeat stopping." Then Vasudeva Shastri said, "I was then too young. I did not even know that it was death. But because Palaniswami started crying, I thought it was death, and I caught hold of Bhagavan, and I was trembling with grief." Bhagavan said here, "I could even in that state clearly see his trembling and emotion." We added that after Bhagavan recovered, he told we and Palani, "What, you thought I died? Did you believe I would die even without telling you?" Bhagavan also said, "We were in Virupaksha cave, and when a tiger came that way one night, this is the person who hastily ran into the cave, leaving us in the veranda, shut the door, and then cried to the tiger, 'Come on now, what can you do?'" We said, "Once Bhagavan and I went round the hill during the Skandashramam days. When we reached near Isanya Mutt about 8:30 a.m., Bhagavan sat on a rock and said with tears in his eyes he would never again come to the ashramam and would go where he pleased and live in the forests or caves away from all men. I would not leave him and he would not come. It became very late. We went there about 8 or 8:30 a.m., and even when it became 1 p.m., we were still in this deadlock. Bhagavan asked me to go into the town and eat my food and then come back if I wanted. But I was afraid that if I went, Bhagavan would go away somewhere. Meanwhile, the Swami of Isanya Mutt very unexpectedly came that way. Ordinarily, it could not be expected he would have come there at that time at all. But strange to say, he came that way and he persuaded Bhagavan to go with him to Isanya Mutt. I left Bhagavan there and ran up to the town for my food and came back swiftly, fearing that Bhagavan might have left. But I found him there and we both came to Skandashramam afterwards. When this was mentioned, Bhagavan said, "Another time too I wanted to run away from all this crowd and live somewhere unknown, freely as I liked. That was when I was in Virupaksha cave. I felt my being there was an inconvenience and hardship to Jadaswami and some other Swamis there. But on that occasion, my plans were frustrated by Yogananda Swami. I tried to be free on a third occasion also. That was after mother's passing away. I did not want to have even an ashramam like Skandashramam and the people that were coming there then. But the result has been this ashramam, and all the crowd here. Thus, all my 3 attempts failed. In another connection also, Bhagavan mentioned this Vasudeva Shastri today. Mr. G.V.S. read out a Telugu stanza composed by him on celebration of birthdays. Yesterday was G.V.S.'s birthday, it seems. When this was read out, Bhagavan said, "It is this Vasu and others that wanted to celebrate my birthday first in 1912. I was quite opposed to it. But Vasu pleaded with me, it is for us, and so Bhagavan should not object, and they celebrated it that year for the first time." In the afternoon, Sundaresha Iyer's grandson, about a month old, was brought by Mr. Narayana Swami Iyer into the hall to Bhagavan, his daughter following behind. Bhagavan took the child into his hands when it was offered by N. Iyer and said, "I was wondering whether you were bringing some doll. He is looking at me and smiling." After holding the child, Bhagavan was about to return him to N. Iyer when his daughter ran up to Bhagavan and, showing a red mark on the child's abdomen, said, "There is this red mark on the child." Further, he had Brahma Mudi, literally not of Brahma, at the time of his death. Bhagavan looked at the birthmark and then returned the child. The girl continued and said, "We don't know whether this mark and that knot are good. Mother asked me to ask Bhagavan, are they good?" Bhagavan was pleased to say, "All is only good. Ellam Nalladudan." I consider these people extremely lucky, and I believe all will be well with this child in his life. Bhagavan further remarked, after the child was returned and was seated on his grandmother's lap, "It is to attain the state of this babe that all yoga is performed. This babe, what thoughts has it now? It does not even blink its eyes." Then the child's mother began singing MVR's Saranagati song. Bhagavan, turning to GVS, said, "Do you know what happened to this girl? She was living at Kanpur on the 2nd or 3rd floor, and though there was a tap, it seems water would not flow up there. But she turned the tap and sang this song, and then water flowed, it seems. That is a siddhi. When the father went to her, she said, 'I will show you a miracle,' and repeated the performance before him. When the birthmark was shown and there was talk about it, Bhagavan said, 'I too have a red mark on the sole of my right foot, but the mark on this child's abdomen is big.' Then TSR said, 'Mr. Ramaswamy Iyer has sung that Bhagavan's feet had become red on account of the burning tears shed at his feet by devotees, and another writer has described the red mark as the anklet, Pada Chilambu mark of Nataraja.' Vasudeva Shastri recounted another incident which he had seen. One day, when we were at Skandashramam, I was aghast to find a scorpion climbing up over Bhagavan's body in the front and another at the same time climbing down his back. I was terrified and wanted to do something, but Bhagavan remained calm as if nothing happened, and the 2 scorpions, after crawling over his body as if over a wall, eventually left him. After they left, Bhagavan explained to us, "They crawl over you just as they would crawl on the floor or a wall or tree. Do they crawl over these stinging as they go? It is only because you fear them and do something that they fear you and do something in return. 6-10-1946. This afternoon, Bhagavan spoke of his days at Pachayamman Koil when he had to remind the office to send a reply to a relation of Rangachari, who used to go to Bhagavan daily in those days and remained with him during the plague scare at the above Pachayamman Koil. Bhagavan said, on account of plague, the whole town was completely evacuated for 6 months. There was a staff of about 200 people who went on daily disinfecting house after house, and they lived in 2 camps, one of about 150 near Chetti Kolam Koil and another of 50 at the other end of the town. I stayed at Pachayamman Koil with 2 or 3 others. The disinfecting staff used to go to me frequently. They said they were going to organize a bhajana at the end of their stay and that I should attend it. I did not say I would not go, thinking their proposed bhajana might not come off at all. But one night, suddenly, a party of 30 or 40 people with torches in their hands came up to us after we had gone to sleep and woke us up. I asked, "What is the matter?" Then they revealed that the bhajana had been arranged, that everything was ready, and that I should go with them. I could not say no when so many of them came like that, and so I went. They had made elaborate arrangements, so many lights, so many eatables, so many garlands, and musicians of repute sent from various places. They had arranged a seat for me and another platform for those who were to do bhajana. They garlanded me. All the people in the town were there. All the benches and chairs also were there. Several of the people assembled there were also drunk, and so they were all in high spirits. I remained with them for some time and then took leave and came away. Some of them again came back with me with their torches and left me at Pachayamman Koil and returned. TSR then asked, "It seems Bhagavan once had a dream and saw so many siddhas assembled before him that they looked all familiar to him and that he sat there on a dais with Chinmudra." Bhagavan replied, "Is that the only thing? I have seen several such visions. What am I to say?" He continued, "Once I came across a Sunai spring in a cave. I went towards it. As I approached, it was getting wider and there were trees on either side. It became broader and broader. There was good light and the passage led to a big tank. In the middle of the tank was a temple. I asked, 'This was not a dream?' Bhagavan said, 'Whether it was a dream or Jagrat, waking, call it what you like.'" Somasundaram Pillai says the words Bhagavan used were Kanavo Kachiyo. Bhagavan also recounted that after he came here, within the last 6 years or so, he saw huge streets lined with imposing houses on either side leading to the ashramam. That Chadwick and others were following him in that dream, and Bhagavan asked Chadwick, "Can anyone call all this a dream?" And that Chadwick replied, "Which fool will call all this a dream?" At this stage, he woke up. When Bhagavan distinctly calls this a dream, and the previous experience he leaves to others to call dream or waking, I am led to believe that the other vision of the tank and temple was in the waking or some other stage which was not dream. Mr. T. V. Krishnaswamy Iyer asked, were Bhagavan's brothers and others aware of Bhagavan's absorption in the self and indifference to external things? Bhagavan said, yes, they could not but be aware. For though I tried my best to appear as if I was attending to external affairs, I could not succeed fully in the attempt. I would sit down to read like others, open a book, pretend to read it, and after some time turn the page. Similarly, after some time I would take up another book. But all knew that my attitude had changed. They used to make fun of me for this abstraction of mine. I never took offense as I was totally indifferent to their taunts. This encouraged them to go on with their mockery. If I was so minded, I could have silenced them all with one blow. But I did not care at all. After the death experience, I was living in a different world. How could I turn my attention to books? Before that, I would at least attend to what the other boys repeated and repeat the same myself. But afterwards, I could not do even that. At school, my mind would not dwell on study at all. I would be imagining and expecting God would suddenly drop down from heaven before me. Someone asked Bhagavan whether he deliberately went in for a study of Periya Puranam. Thereupon Bhagavan said, no, no, it was a mere accident. A relation of mine, my uncle, was given the book by a Swami who was living near our house and was advised to read it. Thus the book happened to be in our house, and coming across it, I looked into it first out of curiosity and then becoming interested, read the whole book. It made a great impression on me. Before that, the 63 images of the Nayanars in the temple were mere images and no more. But afterwards, they gained new significance for me. I used to go and weep before those images and before Nataraja that God should give me the same grace He gave to those saints. But this was after the death experience. Before that, the bhakti for the 63 saints lay dormant as it were. Mr. Somasundaram Pillai asked Bhagavan, with what bhava did Bhagavan cry before those images? Did Bhagavan pray he should have no further birth or what? Bhagavan replied, what bhava? I only wanted the same grace as was shown to those saints. I prayed I should have the same bhakti that they had. I knew nothing of freedom from births or bondage. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Sarvam Sri Ramanarpanamastu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.